Morning, my name's Ray. I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M. Today I'm here at Flash Industrial Painting because we're going to get going on this early 2000s model Kenworth. Now I'm not sure the year on this one. I looked inside the door and I couldn't read it. It's been faded, but it strikes me as an early 2000s model, and it has quite a few issues with it. One of the issues is the clear coat's coming off of the fenders, of the top of the hood, the roof of the sleeper, the other fender as well, and over here the paint's coming off in a way that tells me that somebody primed this and then left the primer too long. This sort of primer you can only leave sit for 24 hours unless you want to sand it again. And I can tell by looking closely it was never abraded, so they probably left it for more than 24 hours, and that's why it's peeling off in sheets and coming off so easily. So that's going to have to be addressed. The owner's wanting the fuel tanks painted on this one. We've got to remove this headache rack on this one before we can even get going, and it's got the hydraulic hoses going right through the middle of it, so that's going to be a pretty good time getting all that taken loose and off there so we can pull this loose, scoot it back, and fold it over on the bed and get it out of the way. The wings are coming off of this one, and we're going to fill all the holes. We're going to put bolts back in them. And the passenger side of the sleeper, you probably can't see it through the light, has hail damage from bottom to top. And here I'm standing on the passenger side tire, and you can see this is broken out. This is very common on these Kenworths, and somebody has repaired it with fiberglass cloth instead of matting, and it's busted back out. And over here on the driver's side, it hasn't broken back out, but it's been cracked and stressed. I'm going to need to tear all of this out and redo it. The exhaust, another common thing on these Kenworths, the exhaust has gotten into the side of the sleeper and embedded in hard. I wouldn't be surprised if that crack doesn't go all the way through. Over here in the front, at the top of it, same thing. It's embedded deeply in the cap of the sleeper. Same with the passenger side. You can see it's gotten into the side of it and embedded itself. Well, boys will be here any minute. Might as well get to it. All right, so we're getting some of this stuff pulled off. We got the mirrors off, got the exhaust off. As you can see, we're going to need to pull this lower chrome off because of all of that corrosion. It runs the length of it. And that's on both sides. And we got the air cleaners off. We got that chrome off. The hood latches are all off. The headlight covers are off.
Man, those are so much easier.
Okay, we got it all taken apart. Finally. We've got that lower chrome off. Finally got this headache rack off. Those U-bolts that hold it on, normally they put up a fight every time, but I always win, and this time I actually had to cut them. The threads were so tightened that they were galded and I had to cut them, so I have to put another bolt kit on it when we go back together with this, but there's no shortcut in that. That's got to come off. This back is nothing but dents. So we got it all taken apart. Now we're just masking it up. All right, so we've got a fair amount of this masked up. We have cab lights to finish up and the end caps and the straps on the fuel tanks. These fuel tanks are going to get painted, but I never paint the end caps unless they've already been painted, and these have not, because rock chips will just, you know, destroy a paint job and it'll look like heck within a short amount of time. So we mask off the straps and the end caps, and we'll go ahead and paint the tanks. I've got the sleeper blocked up, as you can see. That way we have better access to the tanks. We can't get it to go any higher than that, so we have limited access, but it's better than leaving those blocks out and having it drop another 2.5 inches. Now I'm getting ready to start some body work on the back here. All right, so all the masking's been done. We're finally all masked up. I'm going to go ahead now and start digging away some of this fiberglass. There's a few shoddy repairs on this truck. I'm gonna dig them out entirely and see what's underneath them. This is how we mask up fuel tanks. We mask up the front and the back. And then of course the straps. This whole area. The whole back has been masked up, all the plastic's thrown on it. And set up where I can still walk across and do all the work I need to do. This is the way we mask up a lot of steps on these Kenworths instead of just putting masking over the whole thing. That way we can still continue to use the steps throughout the whole process. Here's one of the repairs I'm going to be stripping down and redoing. And this one right here, somebody blobbed some fiberglass filler on it. I'm gonna dig all that out and see what we have underneath. I already prepped and fiberglassed this in some spots on both sides, and the rest of it is just on the inside. Now I'm gonna cut it all out in the original shape. Here's another repair I'm gonna dig out entirely. Most of it just chipped out, and re-repair it for the day's out. And while we're still on the driver's side here, here's another blob of fiberglass filler somebody put on the side. I'm gonna go ahead and dig that out and see what's behind it. So now here it is the next morning. I've gone ahead and gotten on my grubby clothes so I can spend my whole day doing body work. And got the fiberglass done yesterday. I'm gonna grind that off first thing this morning, so any fiberglass dust to be floating in the air will come down and be gone before the guys come in. I don't want everybody covered in fiberglass dust and itching all day. I'm gonna get that ground back down because I did the repair, but now I have to abrade it to get ready for body work. And that's the first thing I'm gonna do here this morning. Here's the passenger side. This was the bigger hole. And you can still see through it, but that's the thing about fiberglass. And this is 3 layers thick here and 4 layers thick in the middle. So thicker than it was when it was new. Like this right here is only an 1/8 inch thick. This right here is closer to 1/4 now. So it's gonna be hard for that hood in the future to get through that. Still on the passenger side here, here's those 2 holes in the roof cap of the sleeper I uncovered. They got glassed over. They're gonna need to be ground flat so the body work can happen. This part of the hood got all sanded out. I ground it and did the fiberglass yesterday and then cut it back out. Now here's the driver's side. Nice, three layers thick here, 4 layers thick here. This will never be a problem again. It's thicker than it ever was when it was original. Now still here on the driver's side, I did get that filled. It didn't really need it, but I filled it anyway. And then here on both sides, these were both just wallowed out. This thing's had multiple visors. A lot of these early 2000s Kenworths are this way. You get a few million miles on these trucks and they all have one thing in common. This is one of them, is that these holes get all wallowed out. The nutserts get spun out at some point. Then they got to pull the headliner down out of the outside to put nuts on the back of the bolts. And you know, then I got to cut the bolts because I don't feel like pulling that headliner out. And so I glassed over those. That way we can start fresh with brand new holes in it. So I'll be doing body work over those areas today, of course, but mostly I'm going to be concentrating on covering this entire back with body work, the whole thing. And I don't know how well this translates in video, but this is nothing but dents. It's just solid dents. And I run into this all the time, particularly with the older models. And this is, I think, an early 2000s model. I haven't verified with the owner exactly what year it is, but I'd be surprised if it was old as 2010. It's probably a 2001 or something like that. And these trucks, they have a couple million miles on them, and they are always just covered in dents. They're not that easy to spot because I not only sanded them all, but then I went through with a scratch pad and scratched with my finger right down into the dents to make sure there weren't any shiny spots. Make sure that all my body work perfectly adheres. But this whole thing is going to be body work, and the roof cap itself is covered in those little bitty gel coat cracks. Just thousands and thousands of those little tiny, everything from 1/2 centimeter to a couple 3 centimeters long cracks in the gel coat. And that happens a lot with these Kenworths. And this entire sleeper roof cap is covered in them. So I've got, this side's hailed out. So I've got quite a bit of body work ahead of me today, and that's really what I'm gonna be working on. So here's the back of the sleeper with my first and in some spots second coat. The first coat will do it if you do it right. And in some spots you can see where it might need a second coat, and you add that. First and second coat sanded. First coat applied but not sanded yet. That's what it looks like when it's applied but not sanded. That's what it looks like when it is sanded. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and sanded down to the primer that this was all coming off of. All 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of previous paint that was over that. Got it down to where the areas next to the primer are now sanding smooth. They're sanding in a way that lets me know that this is adhered. What they primed gray was from here forward. From here back, it's all been primed in brown. So they did a repair up here apparently at one point in time and left their primer too long and then primed over it. I see that all the time. So I've gone back as far as I need to there. And then I've removed all the risky clear coat off of it. I've removed all the clear coat off the top of the hood. These spots here that haven't been sanded yet, they're just down to the base coat. I'll sand them when I sand everything else in 220. But all the clear coat's been removed. I've got the initial body work done here on both sides. I just need to glaze over it. I've got the initial body work done up there where that whole mess was. I put a new set of patches on it and redid the body work. I've redone the body work where the exhaust scabbed up the side of the truck. And then here, you can see these marks. All these pen marks. Permanent marker marks. That's where I went through and meticulously marked out all that is. There's 37 hail dents in this side of the sleeper. There aren't any in the door. The door skin is big enough and has enough space in it that they apparently bounced off. And I see that quite a bit. But where these areas are tighter and they're not as flexible and don't bounce, it goes ahead and dents. The body work on the back has been done and glazed. It's ready for primer. Glazed all the chips and all the little cracks up there. It's ready for primer. The initial body work is done where I had to repatch that and up there. This side needs just one more coat of glazing. This has been repaired. The body work has been done. It's ready for primer. And by this evening, I should have primer on all the spots on the hood that matter. The back of the sleeper, the cap of the sleeper entirely, and this whole side of the truck where all that hail damage is. $43 dents, not 37, as it turns out. All right, bodywork's all done. This guy is prepped from top to bottom and front to back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get some primer on it. All right, so got the primer all on it early yesterday afternoon, so it's had some pretty good time to set. Now today, I'm gonna go ahead and sand all the things that are pertinent to what I've got to do, and then a few other things. All I'm painting today is the tanks and the front fenders, but I'm gonna go ahead and sand this side of the sleeper, the back of the sleeper, and the roof cap at least on both sides today. That way, in case they need a second layer of primer, I can go ahead and do that. And that way it'll be ready for tomorrow as well. All right, so I've got all the primer on. All the body work's finished, everything's finished. The wet sanding primer was applied and sanded. Now I've got my epoxy primer on. The tanks, the fenders, the entire truck, everything's covered in primer. These fenders and these tanks got primed yesterday, so they're more than ready to go today, and now I'm getting ready to shoot the red on them. All right, so here we are. It's the next morning. I'm going to go ahead and run my vinyl tape line down the fenders. So when the boys show up here in a few minutes, they can segregate these off. And we'll mask up the fenders, we'll mask up those fuel tanks, and then we'll get going on trying to get the color on the rest of the truck today. Here, we've got these masked up, working on the tanks. They'll be done here in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and sand this all down. This is the only part that hasn't been sanded. That part's been sanded and reprimed. This just needs to be sanded down. We'll get it with another coat of epoxy primer, and then we're gonna get this guy in color today. All right, let's go ahead and get some paint on this guy. All right, so here it is the next morning. We're gonna go ahead and start unmasking this guy, getting it all put back together so we can get sent out of here this afternoon. And as always, the very first thing I'm gonna unmask is going to be, and as you can see, I've just ripped the paper because this is over somebody else's work. So if their paint peels up because it wasn't prepped, and I tape tested it, I put duct tape over the whole thing and left it for 24 hours and aggressively pulled it off to make sure that it was tape tested, and it passed, but that's not 100%. So I just ripped the paper out just a little bit and undo my vinyl line to make sure that the paint underneath it didn't peel up. Because if it did, then I've got to shift gears and make some decisions, and I don't want to have the whole truck unmasked when that happens. Got her all unmasked, just getting some parts put on it. Just getting the last few things on here, getting the visor on. I'm getting ready to get the, I got all the air lines hooked back up and everything ready to go here. I'm getting ready to put the headache rack back on it. And then we're gonna put the cow catcher on the front, and then this guy will be done. And we're just gonna get this guy on. And I've got the headache rack lifted into place mostly. I need to come behind it and put the two big hydraulic lines behind so we can bolt them on in the front. And then I'm going to install this brand new bolt kit that I ordered for it because I had to cut the other U-bolts. They were over tightened and it had galded the threads when they did, so it was never going to come off again. So I ended up cutting those and I ordered some new ones, and I'm going to put these on as soon as I get the hydraulic lines put through the back. Well, all right, she's all put back together, turned the boys loose. Let's walk around her and have a look. Still not sure of the year on this one. It's an early 2000s Kenworth. We switched from metallic to non-metallic, but kept in the same color families. Got good gloss on it. This whole side was hailed out. I don't remember how many dents there were, 40, something like that, in the side. Not a single one now. Painted the tanks. They were never painted before. Just went ahead and painted them red to kind of bring that color back here a little bit. The back, 0 dents in it, when before it had about 500. Good gloss on it. 0 cracks in the gel coating of the sleeper cap, and before there was about 5 million. Good gloss on it too. It showed up with wings on it that aren't on it anymore. Those will be taken apart and used as gardening implements, and that'll be in a later video. Got the new U-bolts installed. Cinched up, but not tightened up so much that the threads are ruined like they were before. Tanks are looking good. Good gloss. All those gouges that were in the metal from the exhaust covers are gone. All of the brakes that were in the sleeper cap from the from getting worn all the way through from the exhaust covers are gone. The big holes that were in the front of the roof cap there, where multiple visors had been mounted and it left holes big around as nickels, were plugged up and redone with fiberglass. New holes were drilled. Those were busted out. Those cab corners were busted out completely. Those have been completely repaired. Got everything back on it. The owner's going to be here, within the hour, and get it out of here. We've got another one that's coming right in after it, a vac truck sitting right out front right now. Well, all right, that's one more down, 10,000 more to go. You know, if you like what you see here, you should hit the like button because that's going to help me grow this channel. And if you want to see more stuff like this and all the other things we do around here, then you might as well go ahead and subscribe because, you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.